listening to the Retail Razor Show, where your expert hosts and their guests cut through the clutter in retail and retail tech to shape the future of retail.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 3, Part 2 of the Retail Razor Show. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
And I'm your co-host, Casey Golden. Welcome, Retail Razor Show listeners, to our unapologetically authentic retail podcast. We're product junkies, commerce technologists, and everybody else in retail and retail tech alike. So, Ricardo, part 1 of our Groceryshop series was quite interesting. We heard from an awesome startup, Groceryshop, and their CEO, Katie Holtz. She was amazing and really makes me want to go shop for groceries, which I haven't done in literally years. Which is pretty incredible.
Katie is pretty amazing. You have to love her approach to making grocery shopping easier, healthier, and to me, most importantly, faster, all while saving money. Definitely expect to hear more about Groceryshop in the future.
Absolutely. And then you talked with Stuart Samuel about trends at the first half of the show. No surprise there. Retail media networks, just as we predicted at the beginning of the year, were very prominent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he also talked about a few other trends around profitability with e-commerce, convenience services, and current shopper trends driven by economic conditions. For listeners, if you haven't checked out part 1, you definitely need to.
So, Ricardo, what do we have coming up in part 2 for this episode?
This episode may just blow your mind. I interviewed 2 experienced retailers in grocery, Lisa Kinney, the VP of Customer Market Intelligence for Albertsons, and Dave Steck, VP of IT Infrastructure and Application Development for Schnuck Markets. Each of them gave a very unique perspective on many of the trends we heard about in part 1. In fact, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find more unique insights and commentary anywhere else. If you're wondering why I say that, it's because both take a very different view of technology trends in grocery and start by asking one of my favorite questions, and quite frankly, probably one of the most valuable words in any language, why?
Wow, that's quite a setup you just dropped. Tell us some more.
Well, I don't want to give everything away, but okay, a few spoilers. Lisa and I talk about the value of data in grocery, and she asks why in a way that no one really expressed on stage at the show. She goes into detail on the behind-the-scenes conversations grocers have at a show like Groceryshop that you don't normally hear on stage. And if that isn't shocking enough to listen to, she offers a very different take on retail media networks that may just completely change your perspective on those.
Okay, wow. Now I really want to jump into this. Is your interview with Dave just as juicy?
You bet. Dave is practically an icon at Groceryshop. He's been on stage at every Groceryshop each year, talking about emerging technology like robotics, IoT, and more. We get into why his approach and what Schnuck Markets is doing seems to be so different from what we hear from other grocers. And spoiler alert, when you hear him explain why, you just might have some flashbacks to our episode with Andy Lodato from The Vitamin Shop about his book, Fostering Innovation. It all comes down to corporate culture, and you'll hear what I mean by that. It's pretty powerful.
Okay, so I thought part 1 was jam-packed with incredible nuggets. Now you're making me think part 2 is going to top that.
Well, don't say I didn't warn you. If you wanted to take notes during part 1, then you better get some extra sheets of paper out for this one. It's just crazy. This is an episode that I would put under the column of things that make you go,
All right. Now you're just going totally over the top with that kind of setup. We better just dive right in and get right to it. I'm stoked. Let's listen together to Lisa Kinney and Dave Steck recorded live and in person at Groceryshop 2022.
And welcome to the Retail Razor Show's special edition Groceryshop episode. I'm here today with a special guest, Lisa Kinney, VP of Customer Market Intelligence for Albertsons. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you and I were chatting a little bit before we recorded about what seems to be the most interesting here at the show are the things that we're not hearing people talk about on stage. Almost like what's behind the scenes really of interest and value to people in the industry. And we kind of ended up landing on a discussion about data, which to be fair, right, has been a big part of a lot of the discussions on stage, but they've all centered around what I would call the outcome of what you do with the data you have. That might be customer facing, it might be more B2B facing, because as a retailer, I'm going to sell a service around this to someone else. But you had a very unique and interesting perspective about how grocers are looking at the data.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Thanks for teeing that up. I think the things that aren't discussed, that are discussed amongst peers, which is wonderful that after 30 years in this business, we have industry peers that work with competitors, that work with, that are in consultancy now. And we've all been in the data game for quite some time, at least myself in particular. And so it's nice that the conversations off stage are really about like, are you guys running into this problem too? Are you worried about what I'm seeing or that isn't being talked about? And it's nice that we can put down the I work for X company and I need to view you as, a competitor. And we actually then have a lot of off the record, great conversations around what's really happening behind the tent per se. And so on the data space, as I was listening to, there's a couple of things. First, I'll talk about just this. I think it's been a revolution of technology. And I think we talked a little bit about, look, the change that's happened has been out of an uncontrollable demand that really accelerated everyone to solve for things that have been problems for quite some time. Perpetual inventory, finding ways to optimize labor, finding a shorter path to distance from farm to table. All of those things have been on the minds for all of us for quite some time, but I don't think has been quite as pressing up until now. So when we think about the data side, now we have all this new cool technology like scan and go and new frictionless systems and the smart carts and in my mind, having monetized data for so many years, I'm asking, gosh, I hope all these partners that are working with these new tech companies recognize that really the race is the data race.
It's about the data.
It's all about the data.
It's all about the data.
and even when we were talking offline about the Instacart proposition, and it was very clear today that an advantage that they have built through the data that they're collecting in a very challenging channel to understand, which is the e-commerce channel. So I look at it like I hope that everyone is thinking about who's really trying to, is it really about providing a service that's going to meet the needs of customers? Or is there an underpinning of data that has high profitability, really high margins, and ultimately is really what they're going after? So I just think we have to be a little careful.
Yeah, it's part, who do you choose as the partner? And then part, once you've chosen the partner, how do you define the relationship?
Yes. How do you define the relationship? And I think one of the most telling questions anyone could ask is, how do you make money?
Right. What's their business model?
What is your, how do you make money? And ultimately, when you start peeling the layers, you might find that it might even be not profitable at all, but they are banking on, and I'm not speaking disparagingly of technology, right? But I just think it's something that's woven throughout all of this that's not necessarily front and center in the discussion.
Yeah. And it's still something you have to think about to see how it solves your problem, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So along those lines, then one of the other things we were talking about before that very directly relates to everything about data is what's happening around retail media networks. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. And so I'll speak and as a reminder and disclaimer, I am only speaking as Lisa Kinney, 30 years of being around the block a few times. And so this is just my opinion, right? So my opinion is something's going to disrupt this whole retail media ecosystem that's being developed right now. I think every retailer is looking for ways to drive alternative revenue. I think that's of no surprise. I think the data game was really it 20 years ago. I think Kroger, obviously, and having worked with them in that space in the very beginning when that was being developed, it was a data play for a long time. And then it's become a media play. And I think every retailer is my audience is bigger than your audience, or my partner is better than your partner. So, I can now do attribution and get brand dollars in the digital TV world, and I can do
Yep. And all about making it more attractive to the brands.
Yes. And as a brand, having been a brand long ago, so really long time, I start thinking about, okay, so now I'm a trade planner. I'm in trade marketing. Where does retail media fit in to that? I know I used to say it doesn't come out of trade dollars. That was my selling profit. It doesn't come out of trade. This is brand funded. And perhaps it's a bit true, but as a brand then, so now I'm the brand owner. So I own brand X. And I've got to make a decision on how I take my media plan that I want to develop for my brand. And now I've got to go sell it in and try and figure out how to activate against all these retail audiences. And quite frankly, just so that we all understand, these audiences are all overlapping.
Right.
Right. In 80% of the cases, I'd say they're the same. Right.
Yeah.
So are you going to pay 4 times to reach that? So it's interesting. I mean, maybe I'm being too simplistic about it, but I'm like, I wonder who's going to come in and say, you know what, don't worry about going direct to retail. Don't worry about each individual RMN. We've got the solution for you. I don't know if it's in the payment space. I don't know if it's going to be, I mean, I hate to name company names, but I really feel like someone's going to come in and say, this is a really fragmented world to talk to the same shared common customer. And somebody has access to that shared common customer, and it might actually not be the retailer.
Yeah. But they can kind of give you an aggregated view across those retailers, right? Because they may know who the customer is.
Absolutely.
They may have a better data point that kind of fingers out it's this customer, right? And they visit these 4 stores or these 4 different retailers, so I can help you target them much better than the individual retailers.
Correct. Because you're going to pay 10x and that person's it's to the highest bidder.
Exactly. Yeah, which I think it's a fascinating point because it kind of brings us almost back full circle, right, to how all advertising started, where you had these, access to gigantic audiences in a more centralized way to reach as many people as you could. And in some ways, I guess for me, that goes a little bit against the retail media premise that you're trying to, I'm kind of pitching to you, I have a narrow focused audience that is therefore, because it's narrowly focused, more valuable to you. At least I think that's the premise, right? That's the pitch. But to your point, if you're the brand, well, is that really what I want? Is that helping me? Is it too narrow? Do I need to kind of back up and say, well, I need a broader reach because I'm a national brand. I need to reach as many. It's great that I know who I'm reaching more specifically. I will use an example like where I live, there's, 4 or 5 different grocery stores nearby. So I'm pretty sure if I guessed, the people in my neighborhood don't all say, I only ever go to that one store and I never visit the other 3 stores.
We'll call that never.
Yeah, I think that's the never use case, right? Nobody acts that way. I think if you asked everyone in my neighborhood and would say, oh yeah, of the 5 grocery stores, I probably regularly visit 3 of them.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And I think that's the interesting piece is because there's a part of me that's at one point thought, whichever retailer just says, you know what, I'm going to take my data and I am just going to pipe it to the top 3 agencies that do all the brand media. So like the top ones, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm just going to pipe my data there and let them go. Like buy audiences, you have all our behavior data. I mean, I'm talking a world of like what ifs and that would not happen. But you think about it, I'm like, maybe that would be the first winner.
Yeah. Well, maybe if there's that sort of aggregator out there that comes in, whether it's a revenue share or some other business model that helps create that incremental stream that
or it's just not a retailer at all, and it's somebody else.
Or it's somebody else. It could be a new tech company that hasn't come out yet.
Correct.
That figures out how to do it. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Too fragmented. I think it's just 1 + 1 + 1.
Right. Equals 5.
Exactly.
That's not a scenario. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Because it's all incremental, right?
Right.
It's
that's
all
right.
incremental.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been fascinating. I mean, a really different kind of perspective from everybody that I've been talking to so far. I think I'm really intrigued by this idea you brought up that there's another solution out there that we're not quite seeing yet, that somebody's going to come up with that's going to solve this problem in a bigger and better way.
Until then, I think that the retail media space is transforming quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that there's money to be had. And I think that it'll be a fun, profitable ride for many for a while. For a while.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that that's going to be the model that's for forever. I just can't envision it. But it's probably an unpopular opinion. So it's just mine. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how it plays out. And then we can all see who was right about the prediction.
Yeah, right. I know nothing. It's just an observation.
Exactly. Okay. Well, Lisa, thanks again for joining me. It's been great talking with you about the grocery space.
Yes, it's been wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Retail Razor Show special edition at Groceryshop 2022. Continuing our series of conversations with true retail transformers to talk all things grocery and consumer goods. I'm here now with Dave Steck, VP of IT Infrastructure and Application Development for Schnuck Markets. Dave, it's great to have you on the show. And I have to say, you must be becoming a grocery shop mainstay, as I think you've been a speaker at every single grocery shop, haven't you?
That's correct.
Well, it's wonderful to have you with us here today. So I guess I have to say, obviously the reason you've been invited year after year to be a speaker at the show is that you've led a number of innovative technology initiatives at Schnuck Markets, and ranging from deploying robots, IoT, computer vision, and other things in store. Let's get started by kind of walking me through all these different technologies that you've been talking about and what your experience has been with them and getting them deployed to stores and what challenges they're helping you solve.
Well, obviously, I always talk about robots. So
Yeah.
That was really kind of the first big one, that big splash, because everybody's interested in that. And that really started in 2017 with Simbi Robotics to just understand that technology and what the capabilities were. I think the funny thing I talk about quite often is when we first deployed those, it got a lot of press, and I was interviewed quite a bit by the local radio stations. And one of the quotes that I remember saying is, we're most interested in the data that comes back from this. I had no idea what I was talking about. It just sounded good at the time. But the reality is, you start to understand that data that's coming back from the robot and all the different capabilities that it enables within the business, and that data is just invaluable. So that's one of the big things that we've been doing. We've looked at lately electronic shelf labels, which is another big business enabler for us as well, and that's through different evaluations. We've evaluated three different types of tags and pretty much settled on one at this point, getting ready to roll that out across the chain if the value proposition holds up like we think it is.
Okay.
So, but there's a lot that goes with the electronic shelf label as well. As far as capability, pick to like, stock to light.
What have been some of the things that you were really looking for as like your top value that you want to get out of the electronic shelf labels?
Well, that's an interesting question, because when we first looked at this years ago, I've only been with the company for 8 years, but 3 or 4 years ago, as a matter of fact, the reseller that we're working with came and quotes me back on this is, I told him the math equation doesn't work, and it didn't work. But post COVID, when you're looking at a dwindling labor pool and you're trying to add the value to the customer and not just going through repetitive processes. You still have to have an ROI.
Right. Yeah.
But
of course, yeah.
But now you have to look at it a little different. So the math equation is entirely different. And that's what makes this kind of exciting, is it's something now that we can do. And now that we can do this, what is the value you can get out of it?
Okay. So you're kind of backing into it in a different way.
Right.
Yeah.
So understanding pick to light, stock to light. People think, well, everybody in the store knows where everything's at. The store teammates know it.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to think about turnover. Right. But even then, I've been in the store where there's a stocker that's 10 years with the company, and he loves the ability to turn on a light when he can't find an item. He says, I don't know where everything's at. He said, I've been here for 10 years. I still don't know where everything's at. You still don't know.
Right.
So you get that. You can get into other capabilities as well, which you have all these AI pricing engines. Eversight is who we use. But with Eversight, you have to be able to change tags on a fairly frequent basis. But with COVID and dwindling labor supply, you can only change so many tags. And then you really have no true way of verifying that tag was actually hung.
Okay.
So you could be making some AI pricing decisions based off of bad data.
Yeah.
With the ESL now, you've got, that price was delivered.
Right. You can verify, and you've got the validation that the change was made.
So, and we're not there yet because we don't have ESLs deployed across the company, but that is definitely something that we're looking at as far as capability. There's other value that comes from ESL. You can do day part pricing, other special promotions, for customers who are in your loyalty program. If there's something that they're looking for, they can push, light up the light as well within the app, so they can actually find the item that they're looking for.
So with a lot of these things, and I've heard you talk about this before, and even in past grocery shops, the time saving factor for the workforce in the store? Is that you typically a major factor that goes into the ROI for you?
Good question. The robot, so let's talk with the robot.
Yeah.
Robot, everybody thought was, well, we're cutting hours because you're using a robot to do it.
Sure, yeah.
And the reality is it wasn't so much a time saving as it was an accuracy. The time that we allow for, at the time we were doing this was 4 hours a week for store teammates to scan outs. Mm-hmm. You can't get that done in 4 hours.
Right.
We did it ourselves. We sent IT people in there. It took us 12 hours to do it.
There you go. Yeah.
So doing the robot wasn't, I'm going to cut hours. It was, I'm going to get the experience for the customers and get the products on the shelf. Mm-hmm. That was that's how if you go in, I think it was every 3 hours or 4 hours, they had to use the laser temp sensors to go and check all the cases. And if you look at the logs, you know that the temp was never read. It was just somebody writing down what they felt like writing down.
Right.
So,
Most likely because of the time involved, right?
Right.
They want to get it done.
Yeah. And you also have no reliance on how they did it. Everybody has a different way of doing it. And if they're looking for a certain temperature, they can find it in the case and they can write that temperature down. So with temp sensing, you're getting a consistent location for the probe or the sensor.
Right.
And it's consistent time, and you can again build a data algorithm around that to know your case health. And if there's something going wrong, you get notified about that. I mean, we have other sensing within our cases that is more sophisticated. That's looking at, compressor temperatures and pressure and all that. But getting it into each 4-foot door makes a big difference.
Sure. So. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So let me ask you this, because one thing I've noticed, I've kind of been looking for who else is talking about doing these same kinds of technology deployments that you've done. And I feel that I'm not hearing as much as I would think I would, given the amount of time that you've already had these things in place, the years you've invested in getting it deployed. I'm curious what you think are the things holding back other grocers from doing what you've already done.
From our perspective, from my perspective, we have a mandate. I guess you could say it's a mandate to try new things, and we are constantly trying to try new things. So it's part of our reviews. Are you trying new things? So that helps. We're family owned. We're 112 stores, so we don't have the bureaucracy that you get into these large corporations. And I've worked for large corporations, and I know that the ideation is great, but the execution just gets bogged down because everybody has
to have a say in it and be involved. And it becomes decision by massive committee. Right.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're kind of saying it comes down to that corporate culture and how innovation centric is that culture and their ability to execute on any given innovation.
Yeah, and you also have a fear factor with that as well. Right. Yeah. A lot of people are scared for their jobs.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that culture, which failure is okay.
Right. Yeah. That's important.
Then nobody's going to try.
No one's going to try anything. Yeah.
I'm not going to stick my neck out. It's it's like why everybody bought IBM years ago.
That's right. Yeah. You couldn't go wrong. Nobody got fired over that.
Nobody got fired over that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So if you have someone who's trying to do these kinds of things and they look at you and say, Dave, what are some of the lessons you've learned that if you were to go back and do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Yeah, there's been some big failures.
Yeah.
Sometimes you try too hard to get to the end result and you go too fast. There's been a number of things that we've rolled out that we just went crazy and got the implementation done to get to the end result or the cost savings or whatever. And you stand back and you look at it and you go, yeah, that was a big one. But then you fight your way through it. It's failure is only failure if you allow yourself to say I quit, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If you fail and keep trying and fix the problem, then it's not really failure. It's a learning experience. It's a learning experience, and you still get to what you need to get to.
Yeah.
It just is a little bit painful.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's one of those things that I think it goes back to that corporate culture and culture of innovation as to how the whole organization wants to support that. Because just like you mentioned earlier, there's that fear of failure. And if that's a valid fear, then nobody wants to fail, right? So nobody wants to try anything then because they might fail. Are there any other technologies like this? Because you've done a lot at this point. You've really made good use of all of these things we call emerging technologies in the space. Apart from the electronic shelf labels, are there anything else catching your eye that you're really looking at, either studying or thinking about? That's where we're going next.
Well, smart carts are one thing. Yeah, I've looked at the Amazon Go type concepts. And, you know, it's great, but the infrastructure that's associated with that, the retrofitting of a building, I think smart carts are one thing that's really got some traction in it. You see more and more of the self-scanning as you're shopping. That's failing in places. You have too much theft.
Sure.
There are a couple things that I've looked at that I think are really cool, that I really don't know where the business case is for it. We were looking for indoor GPS. So I went through a number of different things with beaconing and went into visible.
I remember beacons.
Yeah. Did you ever see visible light communication?
I did, yeah.
That's
I
really
looked at that once before too,
Yeah, that's really cool. Really accurate, but the customers would hate you because you kill their battery before they finish their shopping journey. And then you have Orient out there. I don't know if you've seen Orient or not, which is an Israeli company that does indoor positioning, and they're using it off the phone. It's super accurate, but it's understanding as time has evolved for us and we've gotten further away. It's how do we incorporate that capability into our app and the experience for the end customer now. And I think eventually we'll get there, but indoor positioning is going to stick at some point. It's important.
Yeah. I think that's definitely one. Customers want that.
Yes.
Customers want the benefit from that one.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Dave, I really appreciate you joining me today. This has been a fascinating conversation. I love hearing all the different things that you're trying and hearing about the culture of your organization and how you guys go about trying new things. I think that's fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We hope you enjoyed our show, and we can't ask you enough to please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts to help us grow and bring you more great episodes. If you don't want to miss a minute of what's next, be sure to smash that subscribe button in your favorite podcast player. And don't forget to check out our show notes for handy links and more deets. I'm your host, Casey Golden.
And if you'd like to learn more about the two of us, follow us on Twitter at KCC and Ricardo_Belmar, or find us on LinkedIn. Be sure to follow the show on LinkedIn and Twitter at Retail Razor, plus our YouTube channel for videos of each episode and bonus content. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, there's never been a better time to be in retail if you cut through the clutter. Until next time, this is the Retail Razor Show.